All right. Good morning to you. How was your weekend, man? It was a long one, right? It was good. I hope it was. We enjoyed ours. It was kind of relaxing. Hung out with friends mostly all weekend, and it was good. It was just rich. Yesterday we did a little labor around the house. I knocked out all the to-do list I had. Tam knocked out a chunk of hers. We had time to take a nap and eat some good food, watch a movie, and just enjoy. Really just kind of hanging out. I did a little bit of studying here and there, so it was a good day. And man, I'm looking forward to the week. It's a short week, and tonight my son's being recognized. He's a paramedic firefighter, and he and his team was able to talk someone off a ledge, really, literally. And so anyway, they're being recognized, so we're excited about that for him and for the woman that they helped rethink life. And so it's good. So today, man, we're helping ourselves rethink life as we walk through these daily doses, don't we? And so we're in Luke chapter 6. So if you got a Bible, go ahead and turn there. We're going to kind of jump right into it. We are in the middle, I say middle, first third of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. And so we've seen ourselves in that context, and so it's important that we kind of just lay a really quick foundation to give us the context of that. He is contrasting. So he starts off after having spent the whole night on the mountain, has appointed the 12 disciples to become apostles, and multitudes from Judea, Jerusalem, all of the Galilean region, disciples from everywhere have gathered. They have heard great stuff about him. Some are disciples, that is, that they're learners. They're really bought in that sense. Some have no longer walked with him, but this is where they are. And then you have the curious, right? We talked about all the people that had gathered on that hillside. To him, it didn't matter who gathered on the hillside. He was going to speak truth. He was going to speak truth to the core, that is the 12, to make sure he reinforces in them what their attitude and outlook in life ought to be. He's shaping right now. This is the King of Kings, the Redeemer, schooling his people on how they ought to think. And so the whole world is listening in at that point. So you've got the core group of people. You've kind of got the crowd, that is those that are kind of following. You've got the curious, right? And so there's just a crowd of people that are following him here. And so we're in the middle of this message. And he started out by saying, who are the blessed ones? Because everybody had already decided, well, we know who the blessed ones are. They're the really religious folk, right? They're the really wealthy folk. It's Rome. It's the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Sanhedrin, and certainly not us. First words out of his mouth, blessed are you who are poor, right? Poor in spirit, right? As opposed to those who are rich, who feel good about themselves, the arrogant, the confident, the naively confident, right? That's the contrast. Blessed are you who are hungry. That's those who have a craving to know for truth and all of that, as opposed to those who feel well fed. Hey, we know the book, we're good, right? This is the contrast he's painting. To those who mourn, right? Or to those who laugh. Those are like, we got it all together. Woo-hoo, let's go run around and condemn all those who don't. He's like, blessed who mourn. Because you know your lot in life is that you were built and called for more than what you're living. And then he said, hey, and when you live like that, blessed are you because you're persecuted. It's okay. The other is, hey, woe to those of you who everyone calls you good. And so what's the contrast here? The attitude of heart. Proud versus the humble. The blessed ones aren't the proud ones who think they have it all together and who everybody just loves to be like them and always singing their praises. It's the ones who are humble. The ones who know that, man, they're not where they ought to be, but they sure do want to get there, right? That's the contrast. And so then he says, so in light of that, you're going to have enemies. And he says, with these enemies, you need to, your attitude ought to be just love toward them, right? Your actions should be that you do good things to them. And then your words should be that you bless them. You're not always griping and condemning them and all of those things. And so then he gives these illustrations, and we've looked at them. And so we're getting to the place where we want to be today. But he says, hey, so turn the other cheek. What does that mean? That means I'm just going to let them beat me up? No, that's not the context. The context is humility. To be slapped on the cheek is a sign of humility. right? A humiliation, rather. That you're being humiliated. You're being called out, right? You've offended someone in their own mind, and your lifestyle has offended. And he says, look, don't let that humiliation change who you are. The whole world's going to scream at you and humiliate you, and they're going to make you feel that way. Or don't let them. No. Turn the other cheek. Keep taking their humiliation. This is all he's saying. We're unmoved by people. This is the crux of the gospel. Paul laid it out in 5 attitudes. You and I will be completely humble, completely gentle, patient, forbearing, and keeping kindness at all costs. And so these are the 5 attitudes that we're to have. That forbearance means I'm unmoved by people. Patience means I'm unmoved by circumstances. I'm not letting those circumstances or those people affect how I'm going to live my life. So I'm going to turn the other cheek. You can keep humiliating me all you want to. I don't care. I'm going to keep doing that which God requires of me. That's the force of that. Embrace that humiliation. And then he says, give away your tunic. Listen, people are going to be wanting to take advantage of you constantly. It's okay. Love them anyway. Love them anyway, right? I mean, somebody's asking you for money or whatever, and I'm not talking about necessarily the stranger, although it could be. I'm just simply saying the people that hey, I'm going to pay you back on Tuesday, and they're not going to pay you back on Tuesday. If that's a need that they legitimately have, love them anyway. This is the point. This is what he's saying here, that you and I are to give without expectation, right? I'm not going to expect that people are going to pay me back in what I'm going to give, not because I think, hey, it's going to be a quid pro quo here. I'm just going to give. This is kingdom thought right here. And then he says we're going to practice the golden rule. It's not like, hey, you mean to me, I'm going to be mean to you. It's like, you know what? No. How would I want to be treated if the table's returned? Right? That's what it is. And he says then live that way just like your Father in heaven. And this is the bridge verse that gets us to where we're going today. But love your enemies, do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. He's just giving them a review of what he had just stated. Then your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High. You will declare, when you live like that, your reward is going to be great because you have proven yourself to be children of the King, right? Heirs, joint heirs, right? You have a blessing. You have a blessing coming. You are the blessed ones. This is what he's saying. You've been called out of darkness into his marvelous light. We're the blessed ones. Live like you're blessed. Quit trying to live like the rest of the world and compare yourself to them. Man, you're blessed. You have no idea who you are, apparently, if you don't live like that, right? And he says, for he himself is kind to ungrateful. Listen, mark yourselves. Live yourselves like God would if he were on earth. Why Jesus, the commandment starts out, love your neighbor yourself. Jesus says, I'm giving you a new commandment now. You've seen how I, the King, God in the flesh, have lived. I want you to love as I've loved you. Right? That's the standard. And so when he's saying here, this is what he's talking about. Hey, listen, live like God would. Treat others like God would. And he says, just to remind you, he says, for he himself, God Most High himself, is kind to ungrateful and evil people, right? And in other passages, he says, doesn't he cause the sun to rise and fall on them too? Doesn't he cause the rain to fall on them too? Doesn't he bless their pastures? Doesn't he do that? You do the same thing. Be kind to everybody. It's not that hard. Just be kind. Yeah, but what they're dirty, right? Be kind. Yeah, but you don't know what they did to. Be kind. That's it. Just be kind. Because why? Because that's how God treated you when you were in the middle of your and lost and stuck in your sin. He was kind to you. It's the kindness of God that leads us to repentance. So be kind. And he says, be merciful. Just as your Father is merciful. How is he merciful? Man, he knew I was in a helpless state, drowning. He knew we were all drowning. There was not one person who wasn't drowning. And so he sent his Son to die for us. That we didn't have to drown in our sin, but that someone would redeem us. Someone would toss us, that life preserver, so to speak, transforming our life. For we were dead, now we live. And so he was merciful to us. Even when we didn't want his help, he was merciful to us. This is the message. Now, this is where we shift. So today, new thought, he says, do not judge, and you will not be judged. And do not condemn, You won't be condemned. Pardon, and you'll be pardoned. Give, and it'll be given to you. They will pour into your lap, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over. For by your standard of measure, it will be measured you in return. Now, in this passage, we find probably 2 or 3 of the most misunderstood passages in all of the scriptures, right? Don't judge this, so you be not judged. How many times have you had that thrown in your face, right? Don't judge you unless you be judged, right? You don't have a right to judge anybody. And those who say that are right. What they're wrong in is that our assessment may be right or wrong about people, right? If you see people, I mean, Jesus is explaining that when he says, don't cast your pearl before the swine, right? There's several places where we'll see that he says that. He talked about taking the speck out of your eye so that you can see the speck in another's eye. Just a minute, later on, we're going to see that in this section. So let's talk about what is the context of this. Don't judge others. He's not saying not to embrace. He's not saying embrace their sin or rebellion or hatred and go, hey man, yeah, you're good. He's not saying that. He's not saying you judge them right or wrong, good or bad. He's simply saying you don't judge them at all. And who's he speaking of? The enemy. Love your enemy. This is the whole context of that. We're still in that context. People who don't like you and dislike you, your place is not to judge them. He's saying love them in spite of their mess. Love them in spite of their hatred. It's a redundant statement said again for effect of everything he said up top before this, right? This is all he's saying. Love doesn't judge who's worthy to receive it. I just love. Why? I'm unmoved by people. Come at me and love me, I'm going to love you. Come at me and hate me, I'm going to love you. Come at me with indifference, I'm going to love you. Come at me with whatever, I'm going to love you. This is the deal, right? This is what he's saying. Do not judge, and what's going to happen? Man, they'll lighten up on you. Listen, if you're always going over the top, that's what that whole gentleness is about. Completely gentle. If we're always going over the top of people, condemning people, judging people. You're this, you're that, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. Guess what's going to happen? Man, they're going to pick out every flaw that you have wrong. Every flaw. But if you come to people in a humble attitude, you go, hey man, I love you. Yeah, life's hard, right? I get it. I know what anger looks like too. I know what it feels like to just want to rant at somebody. You know what? I'm loving you. You know what's going to happen? This is what he says. Don't judge, right? And what happened? You won't be judged. They won't judge you harshly. Listen, it looks like Jesus when he sits down at a well in Samaria, who that person had always been trashed by the Jews, if she ever met a Jew, because most of them wouldn't even speak, and they'd go all the way around the whole town of Samaria region. He sits down on the well that day waiting for this woman to come. He even knows all her flaws. He knows that she can't even keep a man. She's on her 5th one now, and he's not even her husband. She's violating all kinds of law there. Does he condemn her? No. Is he aware of her flaws? Yeah. Does he say it in a condemning tone? No. He just states a fact. What does he do? He loves her. Hey man, listen, I know I asked you for water, but you should really be asking me for water because I've got some really good stuff to give you. You see that? Woman caught in adultery. Another scenario. Here she is. Hey, everybody knew who she was. He didn't have to say, hey, I know who you are. He just simply says, hey, listen, has the crowd gone? Does anybody condemn you here? And she goes, no, sir. He goes, neither do I. Does he say, hey, go live your life? No, neither do I. Go and sin no more. Hey, listen, stop the adultery stuff. Was it a condemning nature? He said, I'm not condemning you either. I understand life's hard. You're just trying to make $1, whatever it is. I get it, but stop it, right? Stop it. No, that's what it looks like. It looks like the thief on the cross who's standing there going, who's just been berating Jesus and looking across him at the other guy, and they've all been making fun of him until this one thief sees something different than Jesus. And that one thief looks at him and says, and looks at the other and goes, hey man, we need to stop this. You and I deserve what we're getting. He doesn't. And then he says, Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom. You think Jesus is going to go, no man, hey, I heard what you said. Don't pretend to play nice now. None of that came out of his mouth. He looks at him and simply says this: today you'll be with me in paradise. He was unmoved by that man's words. He didn't let it affect how he offered the man salvation and affirmed him that he would get it. This is what it looks like not to judge. Listen, I mean, it's everywhere. We have a great opportunity right now because there's a lot of people who hate the church because of what the church has done in berating people and condemning people and judging people in a harsh, awkward fashion. And so he's giving us 4 little statements. One is, do not judge, and you won't be judged. Don't condemn. That's where we've gone from I judge you to now I sentence you, right? Don't judge people. Don't assume all of these things. And then don't sentence people. Not your job. Not your job. Don't condemn them. Don't write them off as hopeless and damned and sentence them to that. They're beyond hope, right? How many times have you said that about somebody? Well, they're beyond hope. Really? No, my Bible doesn't show that. Man, my kids went to Liberty University back in the time in which Jerry Falwell was still the president there, senior. And I remember stories that were being told about him. And there was a group of homosexuals that moved into his neighborhood for one reason. They wanted to harass Jerry Falwell. You listen to their story, and they'll tell you that there was not a better neighbor than Jerry Falwell. He never condemned them. He never judged them. He just simply treated them like he did every neighbor on the block. That's the kind. Now, whatever you think about him, I'm just telling you, that's the deal. He and Larry Flint. I don't know if you know Larry Flint. Hustler magazine put out a whole deal spread in the newspaper mocking Jerry Falwell, saying how he had slept with his mother and he was a drunkard and all of these things. And Jerry Falwell sued him to get him to shut it down. He lost the case. It was a First Amendment case, and he lost it. And then there was an opportunity to go on Larry King Live. And Jerry Falwell called Larry Flint and said, "Hey, let's go on there and let's talk about life." Man, they became close friends. They exchanged birthday cards, and whenever Jerry Falwell was in L.A., they met for dinner. This man, he hated Jerry Falwell and everything he stood for. Jerry Falwell didn't judge him or condemn him. He just simply lived his life. Listen, unsaved people do unsaved things. That's who they are. Broken people do broken things. We're not judging them for that. He says this: pardon them, and you'll be pardoned, right? Forgive them. No bitterness, no grudge, no hoping for condemnation. Just pardon them. Why? Because we're children of the King. This is what he says. Pardon, and you'll be pardoned. Give, and it'll be given to you. Right? Why? Because we're children of the King. This is what he's saying. So give to them. Why? Give grace. Give grace to people. I know you got people who, the whole gender issue or homosexual issue or whatever other issue that you see out there in the world right now. Give grace. Give mercy. Give kindness. Give favor, right? I mean, treat them like they want to be, like you'd want to be treated. You know what's going to happen? They will give it back to you. This is not a statement of tithing and how God rewards you. It's been used like that. And there is an application in some sense of that principle. But this principle is not about God and what he's going to do. This principle is that when you do these things to others, when you don't judge others, when you don't condemn others, when you pardon others, when you give to others, and you're not looking for anything in return, they breathe that air of grace and to mercy. And what do? They want to give it to you in return because, man, the world's beating the mess out of them too. And they just found somebody that loves them anyway. This is the gospel. This is what it looks like. And he says, what's going to happen? And they're going to give it back to you. They're going to have found you as an oasis. They're going to give it back to you. It's good measure too. They're going to press it down. They're going to shake it. They're going to press it down again. It's going to spill over. Why? Because they're hungry. They're hungry for love, and they don't even know that's what they're hungry for. Not commiserate. They've got that. They've got others who sit with them and go, yeah, aren't we? Doesn't the world hate us? These are people who have every right in their world to hate them, and they should be hating them, but we love them instead. We aren't guilty of making enemies. We play the long game. Why? Because that's who we are, right? Man, I could tell you more stories. Got to go. Lord bless you. We'll continue on in this journey in the morning.